All right, welcome everybody. This is Quinn Arnold with Arnold and Moat Wealth Management, and joining me today is Matt Hilland, who will be doing our presentation on identifying and protecting yourself from today's financial scams. I think this will be a really valuable session for our clients, and encourage you to take notes and also think through if there's additional questions that you have. Just as a reminder on the format of these, Matt will go through the slides today discussing the topic. We will have some time available afterwards for questions if you feel comfortable staying on. And then if you ever have any other particular follow-up questions, we encourage you to reach out either via email or phone or scheduling a meeting. And then one other plug, always, we get these topics from our clients from questions that they bring up. We like to kind of find out what is on people's minds. So if you ever have a topic that you think you'd like kind of explored in a little bit longer format like this than just kind of quick article or something like that, please send those kinds of topics over to Matt or myself, and we will try to get those into a future webinar. So with that, I'll turn this over to Matt for today's topic.
All right. Thank you. And thanks for joining us today. Just to set some background, as Quinn said, we like doing these webinars based on concerns from clients, and we've had a couple of clients impacted by things like we'll go through today, some examples. So it's certainly a relevant topic and something that seems to really be increasing in frequency. Seems like reported cases of online fraud and scams doubles about every 2 years recently. And it's really hard to get specific numbers on here because a lot of time people don't report smaller fraud or larger fraud. They're embarrassed, maybe don't want to risk looking dumb to family. They don't want to risk their family thinking they're not able to handle their finances, or just for a number of reasons. So it's hard to get an exact estimate, but numbers out there, are in excess of $30 billion a year from any kind of scam, fraud, exploitation. And what we're going to try to get across today is that especially recently, these scams are much more complex, advanced, emotionally and psychologically targeted, much more than, kind of that Nigerian prince email that a while ago was kind of the thing. And just to put this in perspective here, I put the logos of a few companies whose total annual revenues are less than $36 billion. And so this is not people sitting in their basement scamming people anymore. This is whole industries and teams of people that are built to do this $30 billion a year. And so, if you think Netflix invests in their, how to get you hooked into, keep watching shows, these scammers have the same resources to kind of target you and hook you. If you think cigarettes companies like Philip Morris or Marlboro have good advertising to keep people smoking, even though it's killing them, these fraud have the same budget as these companies here to do these things, even though we might know it's bad for us, know we shouldn't, know it's addictive. So I just thought that these were some good numbers to kind of set the stage and hopefully make you realize that what we're dealing with today really is pretty advanced. And so the agenda for this webinar is really going to be looking through some of the most popular categories and then giving you some specific examples of what we're seeing today, what Schwab's seeing today, so that you hopefully get a sense on when to be really suspicious, when to ask questions, when to seek help with some of these topics if you think there's a chance of something not being legitimate. And so just for a quick rundown today, the most popular scam category is still that fake relationship or friendship or romance, which I thought was interesting, but that still is kind of the leading category. And then here you can see some other big different types of scams. Tech support has been rising really quickly and is second most popular now. Real estate scams are another one that maybe not as numerous, but as we'll see in an example here, can be some of the most costly. Impersonation, especially people impersonating to be either a different company or a family member. Lottery scams are still very popular, saying, you've won something, you just have to prepay the taxes or something like that. And then the last one is IRS or government imitation, which I guess is large enough to be its own segment from just the impersonation. But we're going to look at a few examples from these categories here, just so you get a sense on what these look like. And I wanted to start with one that struck me as kind of the most maybe elaborate and the most impactful for this was when I say client here, this example came from Schwab. It was not a client of ours, thankfully, but Schwab, dealing with, trillions of dollars under management, sees a lot of these cases, has whole fraud fighting teams, and they're very good at giving us the examples of kind of what's happening out there, so we know what to look out for. They gave us this example where a retired couple was buying a home, and they were expecting here having to make a large down payment for the home. They received an email when the time seemed right that looked to be from their banker with wire instructions to wire their down payment for closing for the house. What unbeknownst to them, either the banker or the client, it wasn't really clear who, someone's email had been hacked. And not only hacked, but the scammers were patient enough here to monitor the emails coming across and waiting to strike at exactly the right time. And so these scammers had been monitoring either the banker's or the client's email, knew that today was going to be the day that they're closing on their house. They spoofed an email that looked to be from the banker with instructions for wiring, in this case, $150,000, and the client wired that $150,000 to what turned out to be the scammer, not to their bank. Found out, a day later when they got notified the money hadn't arrived, and realized what had happened. And so I wanted to lead with this example because, this really surprised me in just how, again, the operations behind here able to infiltrate, bank emails, probably pretty secure, you would hope, and then also be very patient, waiting for the right time to do something like this for what was them a very high reward. And so, big lessons that we want you to know, that Schwab wants you to know, is that for any wire transaction, whether it's from your Schwab accounts or bank accounts, talk to someone on the phone with a known phone number to confirm any wire instructions. Email any kind of electronic confirmation of wire instructions you should be suspicious of. And again, it's being conservative, but the technology and the ability is certainly out there to, again, make an email look exactly like it's coming from who you think it's going to, exactly at the right time, but it not be real. And then we like to add just one more level of detail here for our clients, is that if you send us an email looking for any kind of special new withdrawals or specifically wire requests, we're going to call you to confirm that now. This is something that is just, in today's age, we have to do. I mean, we feel like we certainly should do, to hear you over the phone and make sure that something strange isn't going on. So we just like you to know that, have that expectation up front, that's why we're calling you and we get those notices from you. I'll just add here, is kind of unrelated. Schwab also said the biggest increase in real estate fraud right now is around timeshare scams. And so it usually involves being asked just to prepay back taxes, and then the timeshare is yours. They said that's the fastest rising type of scam right now is that. So I just wanted, as we were kind of talking about real estate here, put one more example in for you, something that, again, just hopefully should, make your ears perk up a little bit if you get that type of an email. You saw the second leading cause of fraud is tech support. It's usually some kind of pop-up. I have an example here, a pop-up that looks like it's from Microsoft with phone numbers, with ways to chat or email. Looks very respectable, something saying that your computer is compromised somehow, a virus, been hacked, malware, something like that. And in these cases, what's really happening is that pop-up is, surprise, not Microsoft reaching out to you. It's a scam that when you call, they'll ask for a fee to fix your computer. And so that's a quick way where they're getting some amount of money from you. And then if you go through with that, usually what you're instructed to do is install some kind of software that gives them access to your computer. And so for an example, here's that, signing up, calling this, downloading their software to what you think is troubleshooting the problem is really giving these fraudsters access to anything that you can do on your computer. And so if you have logins that are saved, contact information, personal information, all that can be compromised. And certainly, we've seen where bank accounts are immediately at risk from doing something like this. And so again, these types of scams can look very different, but a couple things just to know about that. If you do suspect there's a virus, if you get a pop-up like this and it does concern you, the right thing to do is to immediately shut down your computer, disconnect it from the internet if you can, and then bring it to a third party, a professional that can diagnose and repair, these types of incidents. Don't do it just online, especially through a phone number or software that you're not familiar with. And specifically because Microsoft targeted scams are the kind of big one in this category, know that Microsoft does not reach out about these types of problems. They just are not going to do it. And so it should set up a red flag right away if you're getting something from Microsoft saying, contact us today. The other category that's really popular here is impersonation. I have two slides here that kind of falls either impersonation of companies or impersonation of people or family members. For a company, I think these are much more common than some of the other scams that we've talked about so far. And they might look like your Netflix account or an order you've done from Amazon, or maybe a text message from your bank. And all of these are examples of fraud attempts, so someone trying to get what looks like maybe just your Netflix password, but then asking for a payment. Amazon trying to say, did you buy this $1,500 computer? And of course, that would set some alarm bells off for you. You want to call right away. And again, what we've seen here is that they'll ask you to download something on your computer to fix the problem, or ask for payment confirmation and steal your credit card number or bank account that way. And then more popular recently has been some of these from FedEx or UPS or Postal Service, links that they'll ask for payment for a package, or Wells Fargo payment for like a withdrawal. And of course, you give them your bank account and they take advantage of that. And then what I thought was more interesting in some examples that Schwab gave was personal impersonations and how targeted some of these can be. And so they gave an example of a client at Schwab. It was a grandparent that had a post on Facebook about how they were excited that their grandchildren were driving into town this weekend. And again, little did they know, Facebook, especially very public, scammers do watch social media, and they were able to know where these grandchildren lived, where they were coming from, what day they were driving. And they sent, I believe, a text message pretending to be from a grandchild to the grandparent, asking for money, saying that their car was broken down and the mechanic needed money wired to them. And so again, just an example of how targeted these can be. It's tough to fault the grandparent on this because it seems so real. They knew the exact day the kids were going to be driving, where they were, and still you just have to be a little bit careful of anything where you're not talking to someone over the phone. Any email, any text message, be a little bit suspicious of. And then to fight against some of those company impersonations, anytime you get an email or a text message about a problem with your account, don't go through links and emails. Go to, for example, Amazon.com, log in that way and see if that order is in your account that they're trying to trick you with. Go to Netflix.com and update your payment. Don't go through emails. And then verify that email addresses are who they say they are. And so you'll notice in those examples there that the email addresses are not from Amazon. And so if you spend a little bit of time looking, you can see that, Amazon is not going to send you an email from help@markyourtrails.com. So that's just one more kind of thing you can check to ensure whether or not anything is legitimate or not. The last example that we want to give, we have two examples on impersonating government, or the IRS in particular gets a lot of impersonating calls. And so just as one example here, you might receive a call reportedly from the IRS saying that you have past due taxes, and they're going to threaten you saying, this tax bill is due immediately, threaten you with arrest or withholding wages or penalties. But they make it very, very urgent, make it seem very bad, what the consequences would be, and have been very successful at getting people to react to that. I think everybody kind of gets a little nervous when the IRS contacts them, and this is one of the big one of the big categories of scams that are out there today. And then just to kind of show you some more elaborate examples that are out there. Schwab gave a good example of a client that 1 week prior had been scammed for a relatively small amount. And then the next week receives a call reportedly from the FBI. The scammer, who again is pretending to be an FBI agent, describes the fraud, makes it very convincing that they know what the client went through. They say, we know you wired money to this person. It wasn't real. They've scammed a lot of other people. We're going after them. And we want you to know that this certain law firm is representing a lot of the people that this person has scammed. And so they recommend signing up for some kind of retainer agreement or prepayment for a law firm so that they can go and get your money back. And again, just very convincing because they know what you had done a week before, make it very personalized, and just have one more kind of layer in that they can, seem very convincing. And so in general, how to kind of protect yourself against IRS and government scams. For the IRS, again, because this is one of the most common, know that the IRS is not going to call you for, even if you do owe back taxes, they're going to communicate by mail with you. And most importantly, even if they seem very convincing over the phone, there is never an very urgent action needed with the IRS. There's always actually an appeal process. They're going to give you 30 or 60 days to file an appeal, even if you owe, $100,000 in taxes. And they're going to actually, a real letter is going to recommend that you get a hold of a tax attorney or a lawyer, an EA, someone to represent you and help you out. Their letters are actually not as urgent, making sure that you have the time to get your case together, get your numbers together. So anytime you're really pushed to do something immediately, that should be a big red flag. And then in general, again, because other government impersonations are not as big, but are rising. Know that the government is, one, not going to demand upfront payment from you. The FBI's budget does not depend on you giving them money to help investigate crimes. And the government does not accept gift cards or Bitcoin, which seems obvious, but again, these people can be very convincing and make it sound like valid reasons why you need to pay in other methods. And so just know that gift cards in particular are the most popular kind of alternative payment methods that scammers use. And so that should be, again, another big red flag. And so we wanted to give those examples, hopefully just highlighting some specific examples, some things that you can be aware of, and hopefully give you an insight in how elaborate some of these schemes can be. It's not just cold emails anymore or cold calls. They can be very targeted, very timely, kind of go after your emotions, love for a family or dreams like a retirement home. And so in general, be very suspicious of if you aren't expecting a call, especially if they're asking for any kind of immediate action for money or personal information. If you receive a suspicious call, this is especially for if it claims to be from a business, hang up and call back at the known number. So if you get a call from Geico saying your policy has lapsed, hang up, Google, find the 1-800 number for Geico and call there. Don't take that incoming call and pursue the solution to your problem that way. In general, be very careful of just social media and email. Social media certainly is watched by people, and email has the potential to be. And so anytime you have personal information, sensitive information on either of those, just be very careful not to disclose too much there. The next bullet here, again, to be safe, if you can talk to someone rather than email or text messages for any kind of money movement, wiring, bank transfers, things like that. And then call at a known number. Don't use the number that's at the bottom of an email, because that's probably not actually going to Microsoft or Amazon. And then links and emails, again, are very, very common ways to where hackers are able to get access to your computer. Really think twice before clicking links in emails if it's from someone that you don't know. And then lastly, if you are the target of a successful scam like this, time is really critical. And Schwab gave an example where, if you can report it in minutes, it's very likely that even wires and stuff can get returned. Once you start talking hours, it becomes more and more unlikely. And once you start talking days, it becomes very unlikely that you'd be able to get any recovery from some of these methods that they're using. And so, although you might not want to admit, your chance to get things corrected is really right away once something's happened. We wanted to leave you with a couple other resources here. One thing that inspired this webinar topic was a series that's on NPR's Marketplace show called Brains and Losses. It was initially done a couple of years ago, and they've had a couple updates since then. And it goes into, in much more detail, some of the science, the brain science, and how you're tricked, how you're scammed, and why retirees in particular are targets for these scammers. I thought this was really interesting, both from our point of view and then as a just kind of awareness. A good thing to be aware of. A couple of the examples we went through today came from this series. We did a webinar last October that was more focused on cybersecurity. So this is how to add two-factor authentication to your accounts, how to make sure you have secure passwords. We'll send a link out to that recording for that October webinar next Tuesday when we send the replay of this out. You can also find it on our blog. There's a one of the top posts lists our webinars. And so you can find that there as well. And then lastly, we just like to say Schwab in particular is a very good resource for any kind of cybersecurity concern that you have. They see thousands and thousands of cases like this, and it's certainly in their best interest to protect their clients as well from this. And so if you have any concerns about specific threats or just want more detail on some of these scams, contact us. We can reach out to Schwab and get some very good material and kind of help you out there also. And so that's all we had prepared for today. Again, thanks for your time on a Friday afternoon here. Hopefully you found this helpful. And if you have any questions, please just let us know. Thank you.